Hello my friends and welcome to Karak Hearn, bastion of the Black Mountains and the anvil upon which tides of Groby filth have broken for generations. It is a huge and wonderfully defensible citadel known as the Hornhold, so named because of the huge mountaintop cavern where the dwarfs make their home. When wind blows through, it creates a natural effect that projects a terrifying blast of sound through the mountains, used to signal both smaller kingdoms and outlying cities, summon warriors, and frighten away the trolls that haunt its southern borders. But today, it is not the Greenskins who assault this ancient trading center, nestled in the passes between Tulea and the Empire. The Skaven and Warriors of Chaos have come out to play. There is only one greeting that will suffice: grim dwarfen resolve and a whole lot of cannon fire. This is the final siege of a Dwarf Karak. In the immortal words of Wheezy, let's get it poppin' like Orville Redenbacher. The Skaven are attacking from the eastern edge of the cavern, with a pretty massive claw pack of storm vermin led by Queek Headtaker, and a bunch of warp lightning cannons to snipe high-value targets off the walls. There's going to be a very interesting artillery duel here. Great cannons versus the warp lightning cannons that are firing in from above, and a bunch of the storm vermin looking to ascend the walls and begin wading into close quarters combat with the dwarfs of Clan Angrund and the dwarfs of the World's Edge Mountains. As we shift over, we're going to look at more of the Skaven, who are just completely covering the mountainside with their numbers, and they have of course entered an unholy pact with the Ruinous Powers. Much like Vermintide 2 in a game I'm very much excited for, the Skaven and Forces of Chaos do indeed work together once in a green moon, and when their goals align, they want a common enemy dead, they will group up and start slaying stuff together. In this case, King Belegar and Ungrim Ironfist have their work cut out for them. They're outnumbered and surrounded, but definitely not outgunned, because no one outguns a dwarf. This map is designed by Frodo, by the way, just like the Krakadrak siege from a few days ago. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Frodo is definitely one of the best map creators in this community. Always a pleasure to get an epic siege on one of his maps. Well, the dwarf cannons have begun opening fire on the storm vermin claw pack, and the natural choke points around this Karak will make that a bit of a nightmare for attackers, actually. They have to funnel through to get to the walls, and this leaves them very susceptible to brutal cannon fire from up top. The attackers have a significant funds advantage though, close to 10,000 gold, so they can afford, and pretty much have to, take some pretty serious casualties on the way in. Which, to be fair, is nothing new under Morslib for the Skaven, of course. They have numbers to spare, but those cannon shots are so painful. Very satisfying if you're a dwarf beyond the safety of the walls. One of my favorite Warhammer quotes about artillery is from a master gunner who says, "I swear by the Zufbar Foundry, but I've tried those new Bronzebeard cannons and they're solid. If you asked me to hit a giant's eye at a half-mile distance, I'd ask you which eye, because it'd be easy." So if they can pick which eye to hit from a half-mile away, hitting a big blob of storm vermin probably isn't too much trouble. Meanwhile, Chaos has reached the walls of the Hornhold. Armor-piercing warriors, the first wave in, siege towers unloading their terrifying cargo onto the walls, and the dwarf warriors will have to hold it down while the thunderers and cannons fire in from above. It's going to be tough going for the dwarfs there. Dwarf warriors with great weapons don't quite match up to the strength of Chaos warriors. Let's shift back over towards the center, where a bunch of Skaven slaves are unloading their slings at the defenders on the walls, and the attack on the Skaven side is well underway now. A lot of the Skaven slaves have made it up top. They're going to be the meat shields that allow those storm vermin to get in relatively unscathed, although they did take some punishing shots from those cannons already. Dwarf warriors holding it down here, and they have the perfect surround off on the Skaven slaves as they unload onto the walls. And all across the ramparts, the tide of Thagaraki are moving forward, trying to push deeper into the city, while the dwarf warriors up top unload their ammunition and try to destroy as many of them as they can before things start getting very, very scary. Now, one little small critique I have about this map, it's actually very hard for some of the defenders on the ramparts to fire in. The walls kind of block their shots, which is unfortunate. I don't know if there's a way to change that, but yeah. Either way, there are some still shooting in, and there's a gyro bomber, the Skyhammer, looking to drop a big explosive deuce on those poor slaves. Kind of hard to feel bad for them because they're so evil, but maybe a little bit of sympathy deserved there as a huge firebomb sunders them apart. They get up on the walls with minimal fighting. They're like, oh man, this is going to be easy, yes, yes. But it's really not. The Clan Angrund dwarves left the first wall relatively undefended, but there are ironbreakers, hammerers, and a lot of artillery waiting for them on the other side. These dwarf warriors are starting to be overwhelmed a bit, holding for now, but I think there were only like 2 infantry units that were holding down the first rampart. The rest are waiting in reserve. Meanwhile, this part is really cool. One of my favorite parts of the map. There are actually flamethrowers that shoot out from the gate and will actually do quite a bit of damage given a little bit of time to fire. Dwarf Lightning Cannon's getting some more shots in now and trying to snipe the Skyhammer Gyro Bomber out of the air. Definitely got to keep that thing moving. Very expensive and incredibly powerful against blobs of Skaven infantry. Exactly the kind of target you want to go for, and I think it smells an opportunity here as a bunch of Storm Vermin have gotten very blobbed up, surrounded by the Dwarf Warriors who are holding them, and looking for another pass, looking for that perfect opportunity to drop some more explosives down, and it's gonna happen now, boys. Boom! Yes! I don't know how many that killed. Unfortunately, the Gyro Bomber doesn't actually say how many kills it gets with the bombs. That really needs to get changed, but it was enough to instantly rout 2 entire claw packs of Storm Vermin. That was so amazing. And you can see the walls are just painted with their body parts right now. That was fun. Probably got over 120 kills or so with that bomb. I'm just guessing. Really no way to know, but it did a lot of damage there. So, with that said though, just a little tiny dent in the overall numbers that the Skaven hordes have here. We've got almost 4,000 troops on the field. Skaven slaves charging into the Ironbreakers. As you can imagine, probably not the best fight for them, but they are going to take some of those blasting charges to the face, and that will allow the Storm Vermin to follow up to get in relatively unscathed. So the meat shield tactics are well underway for the Skaven here. Meanwhile, in the center, Monster Mash bashing through the Dragonback Slayers. Some Thunders there who are trying to get some shots in. That's going to be a lot of melee firepower there. Very tough for the Dwarfs to hold back that many armor-piercing units as Crack's Call rips in from the flank here on the Norgrimling's Ironbreakers and completely disrupts that formation. See what kind of HP damage that did. About half of their health in a single cast. Didn't get a ton of kills, maybe about 15 or so, but definitely worth it there to do that much damage to a very powerful Ironbreaker unit. Shifting over to the Dwarfs of the World's Edge Mountains, Marauders moving forward, and we're going to get a teeny bit of FPS drop here. It's not going to be a big issue. It stabilizes very, very soon, but this is one of those moments in the game where there's just so much happening all on screen at once that we'll just deal with it for a second. It'll go away in like 15 seconds or so. But yeah, the Marauders, Chaos Warriors moving up now, looking to engage everything back. We're going to shift back over towards the center. Blasting charges going off, tons of explosions, even some Chaos Giants getting into the thick of the fighting now. And Belegar Ironhammer, you can see his morale radius buffing up everything next to him. Warp-like Engineer and the Storm Vermin looking to ascend to the next stage of the siege. Those Dwarf Warriors are still around and they're still at half HP. I don't know how they're still doing this well, actually. I guess they're fighting some slaves right now, but they're definitely doing a good job protecting those walls. The Skaven started to just ignore them completely. Hammerers, the Peak Gate Guard, and those Ironbreakers engaging some of the Death Runners. Now, the Death Runners are better used as a flanking unit. They have that amazing armor sundering ability. They will rip through heavily armored stuff, but they also don't have great defense values and very low armor. So they'll both beat the crap out of each other there, but maybe probably worth it for the Skaven in general because the Death Runner is only 950. Norgrimling's Ironbreakers I think are like 1500 gold to field, so they can do a lot of damage to the high tier elite Dwarven units. Now, the Thunderers looking up at the gate here, firing in with some really good shots into the armored trolls who haven't quite decided to push deeper into the city as the gyrocopters overhead get some shots in. Gehenna's Golden Hounds from Sartorial the Everwatcher bouncing through a big blob of dwarf infantry. You can see a lot of jibbing going on there, a lot of dead dwarfs, and meanwhile Thunder is trying to get some pot shots in, but with the missile resistance, that Lord of Change doesn't really care. Fantastic for disrupting range units and getting in the back lines, and he's picked one up with that tentacle staff and slam it down as the Dragon Ogres charge in as well. Those Thunders are in really bad spot right now. Look to be absolutely sundered and destroyed here. He does it again! I love that kill animation for Sartorial. It's so cool. Picked one up with the tentacle staff, slams him down, demolishes his buddies around him. And yeah, those Thunders have been shut down completely now as the Chaos Giants make more space for the rest of the Warriors of Chaos and the Skaven armies to charge in. Doomwheel getting in the thick of the fighting. And yeah, in these kind of open Citadel streets, actually, there's a lot of space for it to maneuver, honestly, and it should be able to push through and rack up a lot of damage with the Warp Lightning Cannons firing out from the side and with the nasty Chariot Blades that will pretty much shred anything that try to get in its way. Meanwhile, though, the Dwarfs, led by Ungrim Ironfist, have really done quite a number on the Chaos Warriors over on these walls. Not too many of them have actually been able to push through, But at the gate, it's a different story where a lot of other stuff is coming through. Some of the Marauders have made it in, but the center is really where Chaos has dedicated most of its efforts. That's where the Chosen, that's where the monsters, that's where the real hammer strike will fall for the Dwarf Warriors and the defenders of Karak Hearn. Chaos Giant at about half HP. Belegar and his Ironbreaker still holding on for now, but a Doom Wheel's gotten in there, running over the Grumbling Guard, and the remnants of these Ironbreakers who have painted the gateway with fire from their blasting charges, trying to hold on, but with the Doom Wheel charging in from the flank, causing terror. Belegar still trying to keep his men in the fight, or his dwarves in the fight. Might not be so easy. Now, there are some routing Death Runners right here. Those were the ones that were fighting Norgambling's Ironbreakers. They did lose. Maybe still a cost-effective trade, though. And they're kind of not really sure where to run, right? They've routed, but that's one of the issues with Total War Warhammer in general, is that units will route towards the capture point sometimes, and unfortunately for these Death Runners, that will lead them into the fire arc of a bunch of angry dwarfs who have some grudges to pay back, and pay it back they do. Gunfire demolishing those Craven assassins, decapitating the majority of them. Rest will try to push through. They just can't get through these Thunderers, and we gotta put it in slow motion, man, because we're gonna get another volley here from close range, and it's just sheer brutality. There's something so incredibly satisfying about getting point-blank thunder volleys or gunfire volleys when a unit is very low in their health pool, because they all die, they all get shredded apart, blood fountaining everywhere, arms going flying, heads going flying, and the rest of them will fall to, I mean, it's a bit overkill, right? They just shot an entire unit of handguns into 4 assassins, or 4, oh my god, look at that blood, it's crazy. 4 of those Death Runners from like 5 feet away. But yeah, that was fun to watch, very enjoyable, and I think slow-mo was a good way to show that one off. But meanwhile, the Doom Wheel still hunting down its targets. Belegar is very angry right now. Last descendant of King Lun, hunting down the Chariot, who's pulling through everything, just demolishing the dwarf lines here. And you might have some trouble catching it down. We don't have a Thane with the Tormentor Sword to tie up this Doom Wheel, so it really will be able to run roughshod. It might want to avoid getting near those Thunderers, though. Those could do some serious work against it. Pretty much one of the best units in the game to deal with a single entity Chariot like that. But the Ironbreakers are starting to take some serious damage from the Deathclaw Bombardiers. We're getting some good shots to the gate. And yeah, I mean, this is exactly what Deathclaw Bombardiers are designed to do, is shred through high armored targets, high value targets, and don't really want to push forward with the Ironbreakers, but they should probably be moving out of the way. Lots of micro at this point, they're getting shredded. And yeah, those Ironbreakers are looking a little bit worse for the wear there. They've defended the gate very admirably, but with that many Bombardiers getting some shots in with their armor-piercing volleys, it might be, oh, God, there's a gyrocopter freaking out right there on top of the gate. Doing some melee work. Interesting to see the gyrocopters get thrown into melee. Now they must be out of ammunition. Brimstone guns no longer able to fire in. And the gate is actually, or the battering ram actually at the gate is blocking some of the units from getting in. Troll's having a bit of trouble pathfinding around that. They might want to move that battering ram. In fact, they probably should. They busted through the first gate now, and some more monsters looking to reinforce. Organ guns actually opening fire from the central capture point, the central plaza. But right here, Doom Wheel has finally gotten tied down. Maybe lost in the micro a bit, and Belegar starting to smack it around a bit. And what was a full-strength Doom Wheel has now fallen below half of its health pool. Now, same thing for these Storm Vermin who have routed. They are running right into the middle of the fire arc of these Thunderers, who have held down this choke point very nicely, getting some great shots in, and Storm Vermin pushing up now. And they've actually retreated a bit, able to get some more shots in. And will the Storm Vermin even be able to get into close quarters combat? I don't think so. Being scythed apart by gunfire, tons of decapitations going off, and I don't think these Storm Vermin are going to come back and rally either. They've gotten into melee, but they won't really do much fighting. Hit, get smacked around a bit, and then run away, and then where do we run, where do we run, where do we run? Don't really know where to go, and the rest of these Storm Vermin are now dead. So yeah, that was 2 units that were, I mean, they were very low. Not very many models left in either unit, but they won't be coming back to the fight. And you can see the streets here just choked with the blood of the routing Skaven. A lot of models dead there. Pretty good for the Dwarfs. But they are successfully pushing through, and Sarthoriel the Everwatcher has made it very close to the central plaza now. Lord of Change getting into the middle of some Thunder, shutting them down. Hammerers trying to close him down, and they would be able to beat him up if they can get and surround him. but it's very tough for the Dwarfs to tie down a big entity like a Lord of Change. So much mass, so much speed. Again, Tentacle Staff going to work. I've seen enough hentai to know where this is going. Smacking them down. And really doing a number on the hammers here, but doesn't want to stick around for too long. Rat Ogre is charging in from the flank, and here comes the big monster mash. A lot of Dragon Ogres, a lot of Armored Trolls, bashing the Dwarfs around, and tough going for these miners. I mean, pretty much a nightmare. Vomit getting spewed all over the top of these Dwarf heads, getting kicked around a bit. Those miners will be dead very soon if they don't look to retreat here. But the final push has begun. Chaos have actually managed to stream through the main gate and looking to move towards the final capture point. Dragon Ogres, Armored Trolls, and even some Chaos Giants still moving forward, trying to shut down the Organ Guns who are still unleashing their fiery death towards the enemy. Some of the Dwarfs of the World's Edge Mountains from the other gate are retreating back now. We just saw the Verminous Valor from Queek Headtaker going off in the middle of the Hammerers. There are some gyrocopters left, but they are completely out of ammunition, so they pretty much just have to get into melee if you want to do anything. There's a Chaos Giant who's wavering at the moment as the Runesmith and the Dwarfs of the World's Edge Mountains push up. Something there just got demolished by a bunch of handgunner fire. And the Dwarfs who retreated back to the central plaza are now pushing back out for another assault. Don't want to let them get near the capture point, and here come the Chosen. So far, pretty much unbloodied. Haven't really done too much fighting at the moment. This is why you hold on to your reserves, because in the late game, they can make a pretty fantastic impact for you. Chosen might be a serious issue for the Hammerers and some of the other units that are moving up now. Rat Ogres, Chaos Giant, trying to get away from the fighting. Has seen enough, covered in blood, but might decide to come back a little bit later. Rat Ogres getting some good charges in. Here come the Dwarfs. You can see the lava pit surrounding Karak Hearn here near the final capture point. So epic as the Dragon Ogres get into some Hammerers, jibbing a bunch of them. But there's a lot of fire, a lot of artillery currently focused on these Chosen as they move up. Bunch of Organ Guns, some of the Bolt Throwers firing in as well. And yeah, getting some good shots, whittling them down before they even have a chance to get into close quarters combat, as the Quarrelers get some shots in on Sartorial as well. Not a great target for them, of course, because he has such high missile resistance. But those Bolt Throwers doing quite a number on the Chosen, the Dark Gods, as they move up, trying desperately to get to the capture point. Organ Guns also unleashing death and destruction. Hellpit Abomination has pushed through and is going to move down the right wing. Let's take a look at what the Skaven have done. They don't have a ton left, but to be honest, neither do the Dwarfs. Look at what's left. It's almost all artillery. If they have something with a lot of mobility that can get in there, they can shut down a lot of this arty crew and basically completely prevent them from making any more impact on the battle. But there is the Peak Gate Guard left. That's an important melee unit, and the Belegar Ironhammer is there as well. So there is some defense for the artillery. If Chaos can get through these guys, they might be able to, as Zinchi Lightning going off and Queek Headtaker looking to get into melee with the Runesmith, and she should be able to slaughter him with Trophy Heads and some of these other, yeah, with the Thane actually, not the Runesmith, but Queek will murder this guy in close quarters combat, 1v1. Not an issue for him. The Hellpit Abomination is drawing a lot of fire on the right flank, but Chaos and the Skaven haven't really sent down much here. The Hellpit needs support if it wants to be able to get past these Quarrelers and get into the back lines. Smashed a Gyrocopter there. That thing goes down, and definitely doing a lot of work here in terms of soaking up missile fire and a lot of the Dwarf Defenders' attention. But the center is a bit of a struggle for Chaos as the Flame Cannons begin opening up fire now on the Deathglow Bombardiers, getting a really good shot in there on the rear of some of those Poison Casters. And Storm Vermin getting into melee with the Warblock Engineer against the Norgling's Ironbreakers. Belegar Ironhammer charging forward into the fray to deal with that Warblock Engineer as the Deathglow Bombardiers reap death and destruction in and amongst the Norgling's Ironbreakers. We're trying to push through, but they've taken so much damage. More hammers waiting in reserve. And the Dwarfs definitely actually do have a pretty decent defense going on right now. Chaos and Skaven are struggling a bit, but they have a Hell Cannon. They do have their Chaos Giant, who probably doesn't have much health left whatsoever. Getting in there, smacking the rest of these Slayers around. Dwarf Warriors, great weapons going down, and Superman Breath going down as well. Freezing and jibbing a bunch of the Dwarfs as he stomps through. Making so much impact here, taking up so much fire, but can Chaos and the Skaven push through and get at the final capture point and win this battle? Can they deal with what the Dwarfs have left? Hell Cannon would be a very important component of doing that. Very nice shot into the flank of some of those hammers, but actually just missed barely. Almost got it. Sartorial causing terror, spreading terror in and amongst the ranks. More Zinchi Lightning going down. Might have actually sent more of the Skaven flying than the Dwarfs. But Thunder is getting some shots in. Deathglow Bombardiers pouring in the fire as well. And their attack is beginning to fizzle out. There isn't much left. But there are some artillery, and there's still the Warp Fire throwers who are painting their targets here with Warp Fire, shredding flesh from bone. Beautiful. I love that green flame. It looks so badass. And yeah, the remnants of the Dwarfs there in the center. Not much of them. I mean, it's just been a bloody, torrid affair for everyone involved. There's not a whole lot left of any of the armies. A couple of melee units left for the Dwarfs, and they do have a lot of artillery. But what I really feel like the Skaven, and well, especially Chaos needed, was they needed something with more mobility. They needed like 1 or 2 Chaos Knights to hold in reserve until near the end of the game, that they could then sweep in from the flank and shut down those range units and shut down the artillery crews. If they had done that, they could have easily won this game. I feel like they invested so much in that central avenue, that central alleyway leading towards the capture point, instead of getting some flankers around, maybe keeping some flyers in reserve that they could have swept in later on in the game, that would have been able to shut down those artillery crews, prevent them from firing. That could have changed the game completely. So yeah, I think they needed a bit more mobility, maybe like a Chaos Lord on a dragon to sweep in there at the end. And, well, not that Sartorial didn't make a big impact on this game. He definitely did. I mean, he probably got close to 100 kills himself. He just went down, actually. But yeah, I mean, I think they focused so much on this avenue we're looking at right now, the main gate and the main street towards the final defense, that it allowed the artillery to just fire into those very funneled troops, and they got shredded on the way in, that's for sure. But honestly, a couple changes in play here or there, and I think that the attackers probably could have taken it. Oh man, those bolt throwers are shredding the cannon crews. The Chaos Dwarfs getting into close quarters combat with the Dwarf Warriors. Probably some friendly fire going in there as well, but yeah, that's awesome. The great last stand for the attackers here, and that will be the battle. The final defense of Karak. I guess maybe won't be so final, because it didn't fall. They actually managed to defend against very overwhelming numbers and attackers from the Warriors of Chaos and from the Skaven. So looking at the stats here, Belegar Ironhammer, 100 kills himself, did a lot of work. Northernling's Ironbreaker's 164. I mean, all of the kills for Clan Aingrud are going to be a bit inflated because they were fighting Skaven and the biggest army on the field. So not that surprising to see some of those kills. But the Dwarf Warriors on the walls, that first group, actually never died. They actually killed a bunch of slaves and survived till the end of the game, which is pretty crazy because they were fighting like storm vermin and stuff for quite a long portion of that battle. Looking at Fire in Your Eyes, Warriors of Chaos, Sartorial, almost 100 kills, yeah. Chosen did get hurt pretty bad by those cannons on the way in. There were some Manticores, but I think they got used a little bit too early. Maybe should have held on to them in reserve until the later stages of that game. Could have been really good. I didn't even see them that battle. And then the Chaos Giants, not going to get a massive amount of kills, but I mean, one got almost 100. That's pretty strong, and they were great for basically just creating a lot of space in that central gate there. Agony Achilles did a great job leading his defense with Ungrim Iron Fist. Again, his kills will be lower because he was fighting Chaos and there were a lot of monsters to deal with. But he crushed that first wave of Chaos Warriors on the walls, retreated back, and put a lot of stuff near the gate. It allowed us to kind of stymie that advance for a while, allowing our artillery to fire in. And for Bloody Hound and the Skaven, they had some issues for sure. They aren't really as well designed for the higher levels of funds. They needed probably some Plague Claw catapults to do some damage from range, and their infantry just isn't quite going to match up to the Dwarfs in terms of killing power, but of course they have the numbers, which were kind of mitigated somewhat by the Citadel itself. So yeah, really fun battle. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll bring you some more Siege and other content for Warhammer and other Total Wars very soon. See you guys next time.